I certainly never became an actor to be recognised. For me, it's about communicating that we're not alone, that we're all in it together, and that life is big.
Performing with Heather is always a joy. She is very playful. She's intuitive. She's smart.
Maybe we should just be friends.
I've always loved working with her.
There's very few actors that can convey feeling so readily and so accessibly like Heather does.
I don't want to leave you.
And I think a lot of that comes from just she's been through so much. She's experienced so much.
Her experience as a young woman working in this industry was really tough. She's lived that, and she doesn't want that to happen for the next generation.
When I first heard the term Me Too, and when there was a resounding number of women in particular worldwide were speaking out, it really did shake me up. It did bring up in me instances where not only did I feel uncomfortable and threatened, but there was abuse. I look back and I think, gosh, it has really changed. I'm leaving. Now you feel the impact and the input of incredible women. Many more female producers, many more female writers, better roles for women, stories about women.
Heather has reached this incredible point in her 60s where she is in her absolute power. And I think all of the wisdom that she's collected over a lifetime, she's feeding into her work and creating incredible characters. And she's giving us some of the best work of her career. During COVID lockdown, I decided I wanted to write this play about RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, because I was extremely interested and inspired by her.
Oh, so excited. Hello.
And it was so obvious it had to be Heather who played her.
I'm so excited to see you. Come on in.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg was the second female to be appointed as a judge on the Supreme Court of the United States of America.
All I ask of our brethren is that they take their feet off our necks.
She fought arduously and fervently and passionately for equality and the rights of women and social justice.
Someone said you look like her. And then I looked at you and I went, it's you, I'm writing it for you. And once I had that, that was the last piece of the puzzle.
I would never say I'm anything like the Supreme Court judge, but there were so many things in Ruth's life that resonated with me. We both had a Jewish mother. My mother died on my last exam of school, so did her mother. This was an amazing opportunity.
But you know, I feel most comfortable playing really young and really old.
I think Heather embodied so much of her. She really owned being Ruth.
The only way to make your own life is to stay independent.
Even more surprising for me was how much she actually could lean in and own the roles of those three presidents that she played.
Clinton's sort of on the porch. He's on the porch and he sort of speaks his slogans and he's sort of like got the whiskey and the bourbon in his hand.
We knew when we embarked upon the process of creating this work that it was going to be a theatrical Everest of sorts.
And the next morning, I wake up and Trump has tweeted, resign, she's lost her mind, Justice Ginsburg's mind is shot, resign.
Heather has to play nearly 30 characters in the play. Her vocal transformations, her comedy, her pathos, it really required her to do everything.
Time out for Justice Ginsburg!
There was something very cathartic, I think, for Heather to walk on that stage and tell this story about this incredible woman who had overcome injustice in her life and had triumphed and had changed the world.
We didn't have picture theatres, we didn't have a television, so I begged my father to get the slides out. Mum would always watch them with me. I grew up in a very gentle, quiet family. My father was probably one of the gentlest people I've ever met in my life. My mother was a very joyous woman, a very smart, intelligent woman with a great sense of humour. I know this is my parents. We lived in a beautiful town called Camden, southwest of Sydney. That's in Camden with our cats. We always had lots and lots of animals. I really loved school, but while I was in primary school, I did notice that my mind wandered quite a lot. Reading was difficult, so I didn't realise I had a form of dyslexia.
Heather spent a lot of time making up stories and acting out, different characters in her bedroom. She had a chalkboard where she played school and she was the school teacher, and that's how she taught herself to read.
I loved dressing up. Would dress up any occasion I could. And I think that was the beginning of the character Miss Mumford, who I developed to help me get through school. She used to teach me in my bedroom. I suppose playing a character, playing someone else, was so freeing, and it gave me a great feeling of confidence. I was able to phrase things in the way that I understood them. Okay, this is one of the only photos I have of my mother after she had been diagnosed. I was 11 when my mother was diagnosed with leukemia. She kept it an absolute secret. This is back in the late 60s, early 70s. You didn't talk about cancer, you didn't talk about illness. This book, The Family of Man, was my favourite book when I was growing up. I'd get in bed every day. When I realised my mother was getting a lot weaker, the way I dealt with it, I would create characters in my bedroom. I was particularly attracted to photographs of women being held by other women crying, or women with babies, or women who are nurturing someone else. I would replicate those photographs in person. There was a photograph, which I'm just looking for, of a woman who was grieving. I sort of imagined I was her, and I think I was doing that in preparation for my mother's death, so that when that event happened, that I would be prepared.
That's what actors do, prepare for something in advance of it. I mean, acting's different obviously from your real mother dying, but that sense of preparing for something that hasn't happened yet.
So when I left school, I was in a bit of a quandary because Mum had just died and I felt a little adrift. So I decided I'd probably go to art school, but realised I wasn't going to be a solo artist. I missed working with a group of people. So then I decided I'd like to give NIDA a try.
We met at NIDA, the National Institute of Dramatic Art, and Heather was in the year above me. But it wasn't probably until we were at the Sydney Theatre Company when I really got to know her. It was a fantastic group of actors too. Mel Gibson, Judy Davis, Colin Friels, it was incredible. And then people like me and Heather.
I just loved being in the rehearsal room. I loved working with different directors. I just was in heaven.
In this, the second year out of NIDA, we were also working together, not just on stage, but on screen.
My first big role out of NIDA was a TV series, Bodyline, which was about a famous cricket test series between Australia and England.
Oh, hello.
Good evening. It was set in the 1930s. I didn't know it was a great break. It just felt like a wonderful, exciting thing to be part of.
And what do you do, Miss?
I work at the British Museum.
Ah, a secretary?
An Egyptologist. And you?
She looked like a 1940s sort of movie star. She had that real old-worldy look.
Cricket is a metaphor for life.
Oh, really?
I wanted to do more film and television and was finding it difficult to get auditions. This particular casting agent told me that I didn't have it. I didn't have it, this elusive thing. So I was kind of stunned and shocked by that. When you deal with rejections in this industry, resilience is your best friend.
What actors put up with, particularly in that era of the 80s and 90s, it was horrendous. There was still a lot of big egos around and women were not treated well, particularly if you spoke up, and Heather is one to speak up. So she would speak up in a television, or film context and be not just shut down, but sacked. That's what they did.
I did one job where I was in a compromising situation, which could be definitely called abusive. I did speak up, and I was actually written out of a show.
Those experiences, they sting.
The film sets in particular and TV sets were very male-dominated. I would go so far as to say very testosterone, cocaine and alcohol-fueled places. Not all of them, obviously, but in my experience. And not particularly pleasant places to be. There was one instance when I was having a rest in my van and I heard the door open and found two men standing right next to me, and one was kneeling and his tongue was in my mouth already and the other one was watching. That was, as you can imagine, not only a shock, and my reaction was to laugh. I said, "Oh, don't be ridiculous, what are you doing?" I did not know how to deal with a situation like that. I think with so many of my experiences in life, what I tended to do was file things away. I sort of put a title on them all like that. I remember there was one I thought, "Sad man did a sad thing." And I would think, well, that's an experience that I can draw on in my acting. It is a form of disassociation, but it's a form of almost putting off the event until you're ready to look at it. I was reluctant to be on a film set for a while, most definitely. And so I threw myself into the theatre. I felt in the theatre there was much more of camaraderie, there was much more of an equality, a feeling of family. I'll post the package to you.
I can't remember the first thing I ever saw her in, but we had the same agent, and I remember meeting this gorgeous girl. She was my girlfriend for a few minutes, and until we decided sensibly that we were much better as friends.
I was never looking for one person. I thought it was kind of a strange thing, really, being with one person your whole life.
Heather and I met in Broken Hill. I was doing a short film there. I picked her up from the airport because I think I was the only sober one on the crew at the time when she arrived at 11 o'clock at night. And we just had an instant rapport.
I'd been to a clairvoyant. She said I was going to meet my guardian angel in life and it would make itself known to me. And within 24 hours, I had met Martin.
I remember walking back through Broken Hill and it started to rain and we took shelter under this awning and then we just kissed and that was it. It was it, it was on. I think it was probably about 18 months to 2 years down the track that I proposed. And Heather said, "Nah, I don't know about that."
Somewhere very subconsciously in me, I thought that marriage meant getting married, having kids would be inevitable, and then I'd somehow get sick and die.
But I thought, no, I'll play the long game here.
When we finally decided to get married, it all happened very quickly.
For all those people who've said, "You must look after this woman," I promise I will. She's very special. Thank you.
I was nearly 42 when I had my first child, Finn.
Doesn't he look tired?
He's had a big day.
And then 2 years later had Seamus. When Seamus was 5 weeks old, Martin was overseas. I woke up and Seamus was boiling hot, intensely hot. We got to hospital, they did lumbar punctures and said it was meningitis, and he was critically ill. He was resuscitated a couple times.
He was lucky to live, very lucky to live. His brain was hammered for a period of time with meningitis.
That began a really intense and very distressing number of weeks in and out of hospital. Then many, 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 many months of trying to work out the effects that this had had on him and his development. It really did have a huge impact on all our lives.
So you get the kayaks down below the police station and take those out?
I was so deeply tired and I assumed it was because of Seamus's being sick. I had been to a doctor for 3 years running to check on a small lump that I had in my right breast. She had said it was a cyst each time. So ended up having an ultrasound done, and that's when they found that I had grade 3 breast cancer. And there was almost a feeling of resignation. Somehow it was inevitable that I'd have the children, and then I was now going to die.
Yes, there's an ounce of, oh my God, I'm repeating my mother's history. We both cried for about 20 minutes outside the hospital. And then from that point on, she just jumped on the horse, grabbed the lance and rode into battle like Joan of Arc. She's made of very, very tough stuff.
I began a 2-year process of surgery, chemotherapy, radiotherapy. So I feel like those years were just an intense period of time, of family, of illness, and I felt very stretched.
The cancer really took her to within a whisper of life. Like, she was skeletal. There was a day when I went over to visit her where I honestly thought, you know, this is the last time I'm going to be with my friend. And she just slowly and surely came back to life.
I wanted so badly to work. While I was doing chemo, I rang my agent and said, please, please send me for something, anything. So they sent me for a role playing a woman who was dying of cancer, who was bald. And I thought, fantastic, this is my role.
And she didn't get the role. She said, I was never more prepared for a role in my life, and I didn't get it.
Which I was just floored by. I thought, how can they not? Think of all the money they'll save on makeup and, like, really.
Work dried up for both of them pretty much for a couple of years. Their theory is that people really don't know what to do when you're really sick.
All right, don't curve.
And yeah, I think as a consequence, they had to sell their house.
It was a very confronting time. But in the middle of all that, we received this letter.
Dear Miss Mitchell, I am writing to you because over the years, I have so much enjoyed your performances. It gives me pleasure to say thank you in a tangible way to artists whose work I have admired. Yours faithfully, Mrs. Zanon. And inside was a bank check for $30,000.
We still don't know who it was that sent us this money, but it was a godsend. It didn't save us from having to sell the house, but it meant that it kept us alive for a year.
We are going to fight this thing and you're going to be acquitted. Now come back to bed, you're being silly.
All she could think about once she got through the chemo was, I'm going to be either back on the stage or I'm going to be in front of a camera. I want to act.
I was doing a play at the Sydney Theatre Company, a play called True West, which was being directed by Philip Seymour Hoffman. At the end of the play, there was just toast littering the stage. And I just felt it was such a waste, seeing all this toast being thrown out.
And Heather, being the sort of creative, ingenious individual that she is, used that toast to start creating these portraits as closing night gifts.
Originally it was Vegemite, and then developed weevils and moths started growing inside the toasts. So then I've transferred to using paint and just a fine paintbrush.
It is now a thing in the industry that you await the moment where you will work with Heather and get your piece of toast art.
I think, oh, there we are. We've got one of Finn here with shorter hair. There he is. And that's on a nice white. But sometimes we use sourdough. I've tried a crumpet even, but that made the skin look a bit pockmarked, you know. My son, Finn, is a very talented visual artist. And Seamus is a brilliant basketball coach. He has worked so hard.
Growing up was very tough. Starting off with meningitis and then learning learning all the basics of the mental side of things. I got to that point where I actually developed the knowledge and the strength to be where I am today. Trying to teach people that anything's possible and all that.
He's a resilient kid and he's the toughest, as tough as his mother. He's the only one in the family with a proper job.
They're certainly not theatre people, but they come to all the things I do.
I love a few of her series. I think her role as Ashka on Spellbinder. Yeah, that's a personal favourite.
Let's find our way out of this place. We'll come back later and destroy these marauders.
It was very early 2020. I think we were in the kind of early rumblings of the pandemic. And Susie Miller emailed me and said, I want to write a play about RBG and I want Heather Mitchell to play that role. And it's one of those rare moments as an artistic director where you get a pitch and you go, no brainer, we're doing this thing.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg was one of those legal icons for me. I did become mildly obsessed and read everything I could get my hands on. I think having Heather's voice in my head made it much easier to write. And then, of course, Heather read it and she had such a lovely response.
I'm sometimes asked, when will there be enough women on the Supreme Court? And I say, when there are 9.
We were, I think, only weeks away from announcing the season, and Heather called to tell me about her diagnosis, and I was devastated.
Pretty quickly, we realised it was a dire situation, and this was the return that everyone dreads.
Bizarrely in the same area, another lump, and I got it quickly. I had a mastectomy with reconstruction. I was so thrilled I didn't have to do chemo.
She was very clear that she didn't want a repeat of what had happened the previous time, where people were so careful about her that they sort of didn't employ her.
She pitched moving it by 6 months, and that she said that she would be able to do that. You know, this whole project had been conceived around Heather, and we weren't going to do it without her.
Death looms at 3 a.m. I feel strong arms about me. Marty's eyes looking right into me.
You're strong, he says. Stronger than anyone I have ever known.
I don't know how she did it, performing that role 8 times a week for several months.
It's the year 2000, a new millennium.
It's a huge feat of memory. It's a huge feat of physical endurance, of vocal endurance.
The sun has come out.
For Heather to bring that story to life just months after overcoming cancer herself was sort of a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
Obama is ordering tea. He thinks, then speaks. Of course, should you retire, I would want to reassure you that it would be a woman, any judge I appoint. This is supposed to placate me. I have no intention of dying, Mr. President. He hurries in. I should hope not, Ruth.
I watched Heather in RBG with my jaw on the floor, really. At the end of it, I found myself not just on my feet, but in floods of tears. And I thought all those struggles, all those adversities, all the health issues, all the rest of it, kind of paid off tonight in a way that I could never have dreamt was possible.
I had no idea that so many people would not only enjoy the show, but feel such affection for her. And that was incredible.
And how are you doing? Those notes were brilliant last night.
I've just recently been in a writer's room for the first time, and it was so exciting.
Yeah, they were really fantastic.
It was a group of women with different experiences, brainstorming and just throwing ideas around. for a TV series.
Things are going away now.
I felt like I had quite a lot to offer. We're starting to think about these women and the voice that they need to find, like even deep within them. I always knew on some level that society, in a way, the social structure had let me down.
You know, what is she fighting here and what is she overcoming? Like, what is...
The Me Too movement really prompted me to reflect on experiences that I had had. And by articulating them now, as a woman in my 60s, I was shocked how I had silenced myself. Maybe she went to the prison because she needs to get permission.
The fact that she could speak up in her memoir about her experiences and actually just claim that this is what happened, I think that actually allows other women to speak as well. So it's an invitation for a conversation.
Heather is a very powerful voice in our industry, and she uses that power to advocate for other young women.
I have spoken to a number of actresses who have felt very compromised. It's very much about listening and trying to ascertain what they want done about it. And I just heard of this story the other day of, I think, fortunately, younger people feel that they do have agency, that they can speak up, that they're encouraged to, unlike we were.
And I still am of the mind that he's going to be a great character.
Granny biscuits.
Tea.
Thank you. Last year was such a big year for all of us, really. But I really wanted to say thank you so much.
I'd be sitting there complaining. I would be with me.
But so
yes, you would, wouldn't you?
It's quite a beautiful thing to have an actor that actually ages before us and actually embraces that and says, I can bring this to older women characters. I mean, what she did with Love Me was so beautiful.
I'm Anita.
Oh, hi, Glenn. Sorry. One size fits all, apparently.
Love Me was just a gift, partly because I got to work with Hugo, who I love. How does that work?
I think, again, because of our shared experience going over it for so many years, we were able to bring all of those things that we had as friends into that falling in love experience. And it was really delightful.
I'm going to take a dip.
Oh, it's fantastic!
And funny as well, because we had these sex scenes, and so that was hilarious. In a good way, you know.
Excuse me, sir.
I love acting more than ever now. I love it more than ever. It's given me so much in my life.
Oh, no, this isn't my wife.
And his mistress. Getting older is fantastic. Everything gets kind of more rarefied and exciting and tangible and, I don't know, just more possible.
Keep the scene is happy.
1, 2, 3. E, F, G. 8, 9, 10. L, M, N. Oh no, I have to pee or something.
That's great. It's not every day gets serenaded by William.
It's just an average day on set.